Everyone, you can see my shirt. I ordered new ones so I won't keep wearing the same ones. Okay, so in today's video, I'm going to be talking about who you should be listening to. Now, I'm not going to give you like a list of names or classes I've taken or books I read. I'm not going to do any of that in this video because I don't want it to feel like a long, complicated pitch for you to buy into the people that I buy into. I'm going to try to give you some general rules and some permissions to listen to your gut or not listen to your, well, to listen to your gut almost always. That's always kind of my go-to. Now, I think this is something that I'm particularly good at. I have a long history of calling out kind of like scam artists or people who are lying oftentimes years before anyone else saw it. And it used to drive me crazy because I would see something and I would be like, don't you guys see this person is not on the level? And everyone else would be like, oh, you're just jealous or whatever, and cause all this friction in my life. And what I've learned is that if people ask me my opinion, I can say something. But in general, you just sit back because people will catch on. If they are legit scam artists, it will come out. And there's no point in me wasting my breath saying it. So I've kind of put together some guides for things to look for in legitimate instructional videos. Now, if you're wondering, now, who am I to give you this kind of advice, you can go to the first video in this playlist, which is who am I and what do I write, and I talk about how many books I've written, the fact that I do make money at my writing, how much is kind of dependent on what your expectations are. But I know that I'm doing a better than a majority of self-published authors, but definitely not all. So if you're thinking of some standout, I'm below those people, but a majority of people that are self-publishing aren't breaking even at all. So I'm above those people. And I think that personally, my ability to make money at self-publishing, and I've been doing it, this summer will be my 5-year anniversary. I've made money, I believe I would need to pull up my taxes, for basically all of those years except the beginning in terms of covering my costs and all my investments, and I've been going up about 50% each year. So I started with a very low number, and each year I've kind of gone up, increased it by about 50%. I don't know if 2020 is going to do the same because it's been kind of a rough year, but we'll see. And I think the number one thing that I can put my success behind is that I listen to the right people. I don't think I am I know I'm not a literary genius. I think I'm funny and I think I'm entertaining, but I am not some unique genius writer or even a gifted writer. I don't know. I'm very proud of my books, but I just don't think that I have necessarily some innate ability that other people lack. So I don't think it's that. I am not a marketing genius. I am not a business genius. I am not one of these people who just sees things that others don't. But I am very good at weaseling out legitimate resources. So when I talk about who to listen to, there's kind of a spectrum of people on the no list. And there are people who are legit scammers, and there are people who are just charging too much. Now, I don't think you should be paying a significant amount of money for anyone on that spectrum, but just because I don't think you should be listening to someone doesn't necessarily mean that they have to just be scam artists. So I've kind of put together a little list. I'm going to use my phone this time. Last time I used a note and it was like crinkle, 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 to kind of give some of my thoughts on the matter. So the very first thing is that if anybody in their pitch is telling you to do something illegal, immoral, or against TOS, which is the terms of service for any of the vendors that you use, just go ahead and just don't even bother. Don't try to weasel out what's legit and what isn't, because when you have a marketing or business plan, everything kind of knits together. So even though you may say, well, I'm not going to do this part, the problem is it all kind of fits together. Go find someone who is not pitching you that, because if you try to weasel out the parts, you're going to end up keeping stuff that's not going to work for you and maybe avoiding things that will. So when I talk about illegal, I mean literally illegal, pirating people's books. And a lot of times what you'll see people say is things like, oh, you don't understand the publishing industry. This is how everybody does it. Buying their way onto the USA Today list, which is, getting harder. Is that illegal? You probably won't go to jail for it. Might you get, is it immoral? That's going to be a judgment call. Is it going to build a strong foundation for long-term success? I would say no, it is not. So I don't think it's a good way to go. And breaking Amazon TOS, I've seen multiple times. I've been in a lot of large writing communities, some of the largest on the internet, and you will see people say things like, you don't understand the industry. This is how business is done. And I've seen some of those exact same people eventually getting their Amazon account withdrawn. And I know at least, I've heard rumors, because these are not people I'm close with, because I'm always like, oh, I want no part of this mess. But you see it, you hear it through the gossip mill, you see the posts from people, and sometimes they sue Amazon and they lose. And so I personally have never seen someone lose their account from Amazon that didn't have long-term question marks around them for a long period of time. So when people say this is just how business is done, and they are suggesting something that goes against the way that you read Amazon. I say Amazon, but I mean Draft to Digital, I mean ACX, I mean iTunes, iBooks, I mean any vendor that you agree to work with. Going against their terms of service can get your account pulled, obviously can hurt your reputation, and I do not believe it is necessary for success, okay? And when we get into immoral, that is going to be a personal thing, and I am going to write you a permission slip that if something sets off your hinky meter where you're like, this just doesn't feel right, trust that. And I have gotten in situations where someone said something, if you just follow this method, you will have written 70,000 and you will make all this money. And I go, gosh, this doesn't make sense to me. Maybe not even immoral, but you just go, the numbers aren't adding up. But then there's a part of you that goes, yeah, but you don't know everything. Don't be so full. Why do you think that you don't know? Trust your gut. So a kind of a story that I come back to is my, John, my husband, when he was younger, knew someone who worked at a church, were religious, so this is not an anti-religion story. And they always had the nicest cars. They always had the fanciest of vacations and stuff. And he always thought, that's so weird. How do they do that in the pastor's salary? Well, it came out 5 years later, they were embezzling. So all that time, and I'm sure he was not the only person who kind of had this weird feeling, but figured, well, there must be a reasonable excuse. And the reasonable excuse is they were doing something illegal. So, when you hear stuff that just isn't adding up, you don't have to dismiss it right out. You can put it on a shelf and you can just say, I'm not going to buy into that until I understand it better. Because really get really good advice for writing or business or marketing or anything, you should go, oh, okay, I see how that works. And it shouldn't be fully dependent on, well, they sold 200,000 books. And I will address that a little bit more later. The second one, so first is if they're moral, illegal, breaking TOS, you can just go ahead and just, the second is if they are pitching you a way of writing that you don't want to write. And this is really specific because a lot of people, when you tell them you're going to have to market your book, whether you're traditional or indie, people go, oh, I don't want to do that. And you just have to accept it. That is not what I mean. What I mean is if somebody is saying the only way to make money is to buy these reports or this book or this and write in the genre that you don't want to write in because the only way to make money is writing in a hot niche. Or they say something like the only way to make money is to buy overseas ghostwriters to write your book for you and then rapid publish every 2 weeks. That may work, but if that is not how you want to live, that will lead, or people say you have to write a book every week, and you do see a lot of those. And that system may work for the right kind of people, and I can talk about that in another video about fast writing and what does that mean. But that is and people do that. There are people who get really burned out writing their own books, and they do ghostwriters. They buy a bunch of ghostwriters, and they do that. And that has, even as a plan, that is very, very difficult to pull off. But it's also okay for you to say, that's not what I want to do. I want to write my own books. And I can give you advice on how to make your books more commercial while still sticking to your dream. Or maybe people say the only way to make money is to do erotica or this or that. if that is just, if they are trying to sell you on something that you just don't want to do and you cannot sustain, it is okay to say no. Even if they tell you that's the only way, go and find someone who is selling you something that you can actually accomplish. So those are right out of the bat. You might go, okay, well, yeah, I wasn't going to listen to anyone who said something illegal or who wasn't actually interested in selling my own books. So now we get into a couple of other things. So the first thing you can do when someone, I'm going to define a term here, which I've called the Dr. Phil syndrome. So Dr. Phil, if you are not familiar, if not American, or you know who Dr. Phil is and you're like, what are you talking about? So this is something that's always stuck with me. Dr. Phil was an extremely well-renowned cardiologist. He did open heart surgeries. He was very, very talented. Oprah got him on his show to talk about some basic health issues, and he was incredibly well regarded and did a good job. Well, eventually they pitched him his own show. He was still an excellent surgeon, but when he had to have a show every single day, after a while you run out of legitimate content. And so he started getting farther and farther and farther afield in the topics that he talked about. And I think there's a lot of people who have fallen into this Dr. Phil syndrome of selling products. They started off with one course that was maybe $200 and was incredibly successful. But after a while, everyone who was going to take it already took it. So then they made a better course that was $500 and $700 and $1,000 and so on and so forth. And at some point, the value versus cost got really out of control, but they had this big reputation. And I think there's a lot of people in the self-help, specifically the self-publishing, maybe traditional publishing, but I think it's mostly self-publishing industry selling courses that have left the realm of what is really dollar for dollar of value. And people don't want to admit it because everyone's taking this course or this or that. Another sort of thing is there's a lot of people who started out and they packaged together information. And this is very true for at least one person I know of who went through the big forums at the time and in places almost word for word pulled up other blog posts that people had put out for free and then repackaged it into a course and then sold it as their own work and built a reputation on that. And so there's kind of also that phenomenon, but there's a lot of people who started out with one really good book or course. Well, at some point, the lifespan of that went down, so they did a new course, and they did a new course, and a new course. And so that is a really common thing. Those are not people that I listen to, but I'm also past the point of needing the basic information, and I was able to get most of it for free. I have taken courses, and there's been really good ones, and there's been a lot of kind of duds. Another big red flag for me is the obviously I can't guarantee. And you'll see people who are saying, obviously I can't guarantee that your book sales will go up. But Linda took my course and now she's made 9,000% over her original money. So those kind of guarantees that they cover their butt by saying, obviously this isn't a guarantee, and then they give you a statement that is a guarantee because it gives you that same emotional kick. I'm super suspicious of all of them. Any course that doesn't talk about the quality of the book, as though a book was like a rock and they are all interchangeable, although rocks are not interchangeable, says my geology degree. That also is something that raises some big suspicion in me. One of the biggest things that I will do if someone's offering a course, the very first thing is I will go to their Amazon book page. So the reason I say Amazon over any other vendor is that basically every author should have an Amazon page. There are authors who are not. There are authors who are on Amazon and other vendors, and there are authors who are only on Amazon, but I don't know of anyone who's really at a high level who is not on Amazon unless they've gotten kicked off for some pretty shady stuff. Okay, so I say I go to the Amazon page and I look at their stuff, and if their entire backlog is all self-help books, I'm very self-publishing help books, I'm very, very suspicious. Because if they are selling you on how easy self-publishing is, and yet they are not self-publishing, it's the people during the gold rush who are selling shovels, is sort of the analogy, is like, it concerns me. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person who is making most of their money helping others is shady. It is just, for me, you have got to prove that this is legitimate. I want to hear testimonials from people I actually know who feel that it has made a significant improvement, who it added something new. And that is a very high bar, and almost no one passes it, okay, for me, because, for instance, I know of people, I know of probably 3 or 4 or 5 people who are selling courses between 500 and up, who are running 500 people through. We're talking about $500,000. We're talking about 100,000. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of people that they're making money off of people who are desperate for their dreams. And it frustrates me. And it frustrates me. And I think part of the reason why people keep buying these courses is because it is, we want there to be a secret variable that we don't know about that explains it all. Some secret variable that tells you book A was a success, even though it's bad. Success, even though it was bad. And book B flopped, even though it's amazing. And flopped and success are, judgy words. And you don't know, there's at least a few people who are spending, they have self-published books, and they're admitting to spending $50,000, 5 digits a month to keep those books looking good. But I've never met anyone who's read them other than people who took the course. So I'm saying a lot of things, and obviously if you are someone who is, your main job is $800 a month, you're a lawyer, $800 a month, $800 an hour, then taking a course that saves you even 3 hours might be worth it, even if it's $1,600. I cannot afford that. I don't want to pay that much. I've been burned. Most of these people have books. You can check out the books. Check out their Amazon page. If you look at my Amazon page, you can see that the things that I recommend are all things that I do. Now I can go into a whole video of how what information can you glean from someone's Amazon author page. And I'm not saying that if you have 10 books, you're automatically a better author than someone who has 1. I'm not saying if you have a 4.8 rating on a book, you're better than someone who has a 4.2. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is if you go to someone's page, and you should be able to kind of root around and see what kind of writer are they. And is this the kind of writer you want to be? And that can be really useful. So I'm hoping something in that makes sense. Something in that might give you some information that helps you better pick out. I really urge you that if you feel uncomfortable with what someone's presenting, don't allow they're the experts, they know what they're talking about, to convince you that something, to buy into something that doesn't feel right. Because time and time again, I know people who really bought in and lost a tremendous amount of money trying to follow someone's surefire advertising advice, or beating Amazon's algorithm by, if you just inject enough money, Amazon will sell the book for you, and all of these surefire ways where they go, I guarantee I know the secret to how Amazon works. And I just don't want anybody to lose money, or more importantly, lose hope. So I hope some of that is useful. If you have any follow-up questions, obviously you can hit me up in the comments. I'm always here, and I want desperately to help. So have a good day.